Woosah. Should probably do some meditating or some journaling before this video, because I don't know if you guys know this, but like if you spend your time on social media, you tend to end up in a worse mood. And I saw a quote from Nick Harris of Stephen Jones a little while ago, which got me going a little bit. We don't need to be going. We're going to calmly, with no anger, no unfair accusations, and no name calling, show the Cowboy fans that what Stephen Jones said today to the media. I'm sorry, I don't see where he said it, but I saw Nick Harris tweet the quote. I'm going to give you a quote from Stephen Jones from today, and then very calmly explain to you that he's lying and he thinks you're all stupid. That's what I'm going to do. Okay. So Jeff bashed Jerry. He hired Steve. No, I'm not bashing anybody. I've been doing that on Twitter for the last half hour, which means that I'm not in the best mental space. And so I have to very, very calmly break these things down for you. This is a quote from Stephen Jones today. Let me see. Let me go get it. Shout out to Nick Harris, who's the one that I saw share it. He's one of my favorite beat writers, right behind Clarence Hill and Joe Hoyt. Right there with John Machota. Who else am I forgetting? Cowboys Executive Vice President Stephen Jones on how the team will approach the offseason as he sees similar issues ahead in 2025 as what the team had in 2024. Quote, I think we knew we were going to have a challenge in 2024 and 2025. It's going to be really, really tight. We still have some money left over from guys who are not here today. You're going to have some other guys that won't be here in the future that you're still going to have their cap count. End quote. All right. So those things are technically accurate. So maybe I shouldn't call them a liar. They do, in fact, have some dead money on the cap this year. I can get you the amount. $27 million in dead money this year. In 2025, next year, they do have $9 million in dead money plus a couple of contract. You know what? Let me just show you. Let me figure out how to show you. Because I'm going to show you what it looks like when a team is trying to win, and I want to show you what it looks like when a team is not trying to win and they're crying poverty to try to make their fan base believe things that aren't true. Let's see. Share screen. I need this. Share. Get rid of that ad. Okay. Now I can't see. Let me separate this tab here real quick so I can see if you guys can see. Okay, so you can see that. All right. I don't know how well you guys can see it. But anyway, this is the Cowboys salary cap in 2025, next year. DeMarcus Lawrence, void year. Zach Martin, void year. Brandon Cooks, void year, right? That's 10.5 plus 7.5 plus 4. 10.5, 7.5 is 18, and 4 is $22 million plus $9 million. So that's $31 million in dead money, but the actual dead that isn't up here in the void years is already accounted for in their cap space, whatever, right? So yes, they will have some dead money on the books. They will. Now I want to show you Philadelphia Eagles salary cap. Hopefully you guys can still see. Okay. 2024. They have $63 million in dead money. 63. The top part here, their roster. Lane Johnson's base salary is $1 million this year. So is Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown and Jordan Mailata and Darius Slay and Devontae Smith and Josh Sweat and Landon Dickerson and Saquon Barkley is a $3.8 million cap hit. I think a lot of fans know this by now. I think dead money doesn't stop you from signing players. Okay? Captain Thunders in the Super Jet. Greedy Dak is killing us. So I'm going to say this as politely as I can. Captain Thunder is Jerry and Stephen Jones' dream fan. They tell you because of our highly paid players, we can't sign players. Because we have an upcoming player who's going to make a lot of money, we can't sign players. They're lying. They're lying. They're choosing not to. And to be fully transparent and very fair to them, I do think it's important to have somewhat of a balance with how aggressively you manipulate the salary cap, because you do pay a price at some point. At some point. And usually it's at the end of a contract or career of a group of guys. That's when you pay the piper, right? If they're not going to spend again this offseason, I'm going to show you again. Hold on. Let me get you another one. It's going to be because they choose not to. I just showed you that the Philadelphia Eagles, because they're in a contending window, every good player on their team, their base salary is $1 million this year. And they're going to pay for that in 2029. And if they want to move their money again, they have it set up where they can pay some of that in 2030, 31, and 32. Why and how do they operate that way? Well, the Eagles owner just sold like 8% of his team for like $700 million because that dude wants to win really badly. They write checks every offseason to big-time free agents, despite the fact that the salary cap says they can't afford to. How do they do it? They go to all of their good players. They don't have to actually go to them. It's built into their contracts. And they flip the little switch. They push their money out there, and they say, we'll worry about that crap later because we need Saquon Barkley. And so in comes Saquon Barkley because we need A.J. Brown. And so they go get A.J. Brown. We need Darius Slay, whoever you need. And they go get him. And they do it every year. They go do it because they think that they're in a winning window. And so they just move the monies. And Stephen Jones today is pretending that they can't, which this is not an accusation. It makes me wonder, did Jerry Jones like lose his ass on NFTs? Is something going on? Because they're crying poverty about the salary cap. And they know that what they're saying isn't true because they do the things that I'm talking about. They do these things. Now, if they came out and they said, we've been almost kind of somewhat aggressive with restructuring contracts to try to add talent, to try to win, and it didn't pay off, and we're clearing some of that stuff out intentionally and get ready to lose, which I guess that's what he's saying today, is get ready to lose next year because we're not going to try again. The only weird thing is, and I'll tell you this, I don't believe him. Maybe this is the optimism. I don't believe him. I'll show you why. I'm going to show you why I don't believe Stephen Jones when they claim that they can't sign anybody again this offseason and it's really tough and it's really tight. It's not tight. It's not even close to them. Go on, computer, catch up with me now. Here we go. So there's the Cowboys salary cap. Let's make that full screen. Let's come back over here. And maybe they just, because it's the Jones family and friends out there, maybe they really don't know how to do the stuff that the teams that are trying their hardest are doing. So here's, again, the Cowboys salary cap. 2025, look at that. There's Dak, $90 million cap hit. There's CeeDee Lamb, $35 million cap hit. Now, overthecap.com is great because they know what these contracts look like and they can show you exactly what you can do. This is what the Eagles do every year with all of their big money players so that they can sign more big money players. You click the restructure. Cowboys can magically move $37.196 million that way of Dak's money. They can move $20.5 million of CD's money that way and go sign players. So that right there is $58 million that you can spend. Magic. And it's what every team does every offseason. And I believe the Cowboys are going to do this with Dak and with CeeDee. I believe that they are. So why are they crying poverty? My guess, you can get reckless here. My guess on why they're crying poverty is multi-pronged, I guess. One thing is that the Cowboys, Jerry Jones knows the value of being in headlines. Jerry Jones knew exactly what it was going to take to sign Dak Prescott, and he knew it. I mean, he probably knew it 2 years ago, much less in March before free agency started, right? Or CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb got a slow start because he wasn't there in training camp. They knew exactly what it was going to cost to sign CeeDee Lamb the whole time. They could have signed him in March. Why didn't they? Because if you have a superstar player who's not signed yet, it's a segment every day on TV. Everybody's going to talk about your star player and, oh my God, what's going to happen? Will they trade CeeDee Lamb? Is the deal going to get done? Is he going to hold out? And you get that story. And you're the Cowboys, so that story leads. And so you got to ride that in March, April, May, and June, and into July. Damn near August. And so you got to ride that. Now, the other reason that they don't sign the guys, even though they know exactly what it's going to cost, and they pretend they're negotiating for 6 months or a year and 6 months or 2 years and 6 months, is because if they did sign CeeDee Lamb in March, they had to sign Dak or he would have been an unrestricted free agent. If they had signed CeeDee early too, you guys would have known they had cap space. And when you have cap space, you have to sign football players to try to win football games. And the ones who can help you do that require a signing bonus. When you sign a really good player and you have to pay him $30 million that day, ooh, that's tough. You got to write that check? That's tough. What would be way cooler is if we didn't have that cap space when free agency started, so we can't sign players. We don't have any money. We're really up against it. So we'll just get all these one-year jobbers. And then we'll say, we can't believe, see, free agency doesn't work because you signed league minimum guys who are barely in the league. And now we can tell you guys that free agency doesn't work. And that's why we're not signing the big name free agents. You're not signing the big name free agents because you don't want to write that check. Other teams in the NFL do want to win. You enjoy your net worth going up. So they don't have cap space when free agency starts. And so now they magically get it at training camp, and there's no good players that they have to sign, so they don't have to write a big check. Yay! Mission accomplished. And people talked about us all off season. They'd lie and they lie and they lie, and there are people in the real world who are going to tell you, well, Dak Prescott makes $60 million. Of course they can't compete. Lane Johnson makes $20-something million a year. Counts for 4 this year. They're going to pay for it later. Jalen Hurts makes what, 50-something a year? Counts like 3 this year. He doesn't count anything big until like 2019. Darius Slay makes big money and isn't even good anymore. Well, maybe he's okay. The Eagles have double the amount of highly paid players that you have, and they sign big-time free agents because they're trying to win. So they take their monies and they go, whoop, we'll account for it later so that we can pay Saquon. We'll account for it later so that we can sign whatever pass rusher there, so that we can get Bryce Huff in here. And that is what the teams who want to compete do. That's what they do. Alec, I am familiar with the fact that the Cowboys cap guy does not really have a background in finance or economics or anything like that. He's an Arkansas guy. And yes, Jones family and friends might not be the best way to run things. But anyway, when Steven is telling you that it's going to be tight again this year, just know that that is their choice. It's not tight when you just restructured those 2 guys. And why did you sign your franchise quarterback if for multiple years of it, you're going to intentionally not compete because you want your dead money to be 0? Dead money's cost of doing business. Cost of doing business and competing in the NFL is you manipulate the cap a little bit. There is such a thing as too much. I think the Eagles are probably doing it too much. But if they win a Super Bowl, who cares? The Saints have done it too much and buried their team multiple times. There is such a thing as too much. The Cowboys were pretty aggressive. And this is why I believe that he might be lying. And they might actually use free agency next year. Is because their contracts say so. Now, it's possible. Let me go back to sharing again. Thank you, Jimmy, in the super chat. He said, love you. Hurricane Teabag. Given the scouting process, we've seen Jerry take the Jamie Foxx video. Are there certain measurables we should look for in draft prospects? Ha, ha, ha. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I need to share the screen again. Hold on. Let's share the screen one more time. Nope, wrong one. That one. Cowboy salary cap. So anyway, Dak and CeeDee got their big deals. And I am going to go to the year 20 and 29. See this? Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb. Void. They're not under contract in 2029, but they already have some monies parked there so that they can pay later and sign players. 2030. They both have fake years on a contract there with $0 parked in them. They're planning to put money there. 2031, void years, no money in it. 2032, void years, no money in it. That's because they do know that you can manipulate the salary cap, and they will. They will push people's money back. Maybe, and maybe I shouldn't complain about this. Maybe this is Steven being honest. Maybe they just want to blank out all dead money and sit at 0, even though teams can win with 60, 70, 80, whatever. And they're going to intentionally give away 2 years of football to have the cleanest slate of all time. And if they did that, it would also mean that instead of this restructure that I showed you guys on Dak and CeeDee, instead of pushing that money back, we'll eat the $90 million cap hit in year one and the $35 million cap hit in year one. And then their numbers will come down instead of going up in future years if they wanted to eat them that way. The only thing is, I wish that they were transparent about what's possible, what they're planning, what they're not planning, because what they tend to do is lie to their fan base, turn them against the players, and pretend that they don't know how the salary cap works. And that makes you look foolish, Cowboys. It's wild. It's wild. They wait too long to sign their players. Part of it is on purpose. Then they have to pay their players very, very, very top of the market, which then makes their fan base mad at the players again. And they waited through free agency to do it so that they didn't have to write checks and the net worth can keep going up while they play in a, what is the saying about pro sports? They socialize cost and privatize revenue. You help them build the $2 million building, they'll pretend and cry poverty and that the salary cap is restrictive when it's absolutely not. And anybody who has ever spent 30 seconds reading about the salary cap or looking at how it works or playing on overthecap.com will tell you this upcoming offseason, if the Cowboys want to, they can sign Micah Parsons to a record-setting contract. Jerry throughout the whole season was saying, Micah, CeeDee, and Dak, that's like 60% of the cap salary. Lie. Even at 60, 35, and 35, it ain't 60% of your salary. Like, you liar. It just bugs me. And so, here's the other thing. The Mike McCarthy smoke might mean that they are telling the truth, because if they're going to fold on another offseason on purpose and just draft guys, have a mass exodus and free agency again, not replace those guys with free agents who can actually play NFL football, cry poverty, get through training camp, eventually sign Micah Parsons when it's camp time, and then now magically we have cap space. I guess we'll carry that over for dead money. We didn't want that to sign players because we didn't want to pay the signing bonus because we're cheap. If they're really going to do it again, bet your ass Mike McCarthy's back. You're not going to bring in a new head coach in year one, not try. You're going to bring in the new head coach when you're going for it. And this is not an all-the-time thing with the Cowboys. I want to be very clear. They're not always the cheapest people ever. Now, in free agency, they kind of are. But their all-in was last year. They're still paying Michael Gallup dead money right now because their all-in was last year. That is when they were aggressive with the number of people that they moved money around. And so they can say, we've got this dead money. We're trying to take care of that. We're trying to eat that. And those things can be true. Just know that the teams who view themselves as contenders have a lot more dead money. They have more highly paid players. and they sign more highly paid players in the offseason because they choose to, because they're trying to win. The Cowboys weren't trying to win this year. My gut, maybe it's just the optimism in me, thinks that they're going to try. They're going to try this offseason. Where I showed you that they can park that money for players in CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott's fake years, those spots being available, they're there for a reason, because they're going to use them. They're not there for no reason. They're going to move Dak's money. They're going to move CeeDee's money. They're going to create a bunch of cap space. But they might wait so that they can use the way it looks right this second as their excuse for why we can't sign people and why we got to negotiate real hard with Micah Parsons. And you guys got to keep doing TV segments about Micah Parsons. And will he get signed? Do they have to trade him? Oh, my God, what's happening? They're going to sign Micah Parsons to a gigantic contract after they've used him, Dak, and CeeDee as an excuse not to sign players, while the teams that are competing and trying to win the Super Bowl have guys who make that much money. Now, that is a really big number for 3 players. So for other teams, you might have to take 4 players to get that average annual. But guess what? They also got 7 more highly paid players that they're going to account for that money later, and they're going to add guys in free agency and at the trade deadline. Buffalo ran into a tight cap spot and had to lose damn near a whole secondary, lost a whole bunch of players. And then what did they do? They aggressively went out and traded and signed people still and moved other people's money. People who are trying to win operate a certain way. People who are trying to maintain their massive wealth while trying to weaponize their fan base against players and convince you that it's because of other people that we can't get these things done. They are lying. They are lying. They are lying. I don't think the average fan wants to go really dig in and learn about the salary cap, and I hate having to talk about it too much, and that's probably why they're comfortable lying about it. They can do whatever they want. The Cowboys could have signed Chris Jones this offseason. Next offseason, who's the biggest money free agent out there? They can sign Micah Parsons and your 4 favorite free agents. They could sign all of them. They could. They choose not to. That requires writing $100 million worth of checks in an offseason to those guys. They don't want to do that. I just wonder. Did Jerry lose his ass on NFTs? What's happening? Look at the Chiefs after Tyreek. Yeah, they add every offseason. You can. You can. So, yeah, they intentionally weaponize people who don't know better. There's at least one in the chat. They intentionally weaponize the people who don't know any better or choose to remain ignorant. And let's be honest, there's a lot of fans that it's easy to turn against the players. I don't know why, but there's a lot of people that's easy for. Jerry and Stephen Jones are lying to you. Money is not tight with their salary cap in any way, shape, or form. And it's way less tight than most teams. And occasionally they are aggressive with the cap. Aggressive-ish while still not wanting to write big checks in free agency, which is probably why you can't win a Super Bowl. But anyway. But anyway, the Cowboys did exactly what they needed to do. If they needed to lose, money's tight. Money's going to be tight again this offseason. It's a lie. They have $100 million in cap space this offseason like that, without doing anything that's really overly risky long-term. Just very basic NFL economics that every team does if they're intending to try to win their division. Do you think the players know this? Absolutely, positively, 100%. Yes, the players know this. Dez has talked about it. When it's contract time, bet your ass the front office is going to, and I can tell you who's going to write the articles that hint it. I think a lot of you might know. Yes. Yes. So are we in trouble next year? If what Stephen Jones said today is honestly how they're going to operate, which is, again, I quote, I think we knew we were going to have a challenge in 2024 and 2025. It's going to be really, really tight. We still have some money left over from guys who are not here today, and you're going to have some other guys that won't be here in the future, and you're still going to have their cap count. If they believe that it's really, really tight because of those things, which their numbers of guys that are going to have to count against the cap that aren't going to be here anymore is probably 10 or 15% of what most competitive teams are paying to people who aren't there anymore. If he means what he's saying there, the Cowboys will be awful next year, because it means that they're going to have a second wave of free agency exodus. They haven't drafted great, plus the one good player they've drafted the last 2 years, well, maybe might be good. The other guys might have something, whatever. But the one impact guy in 2 drafts is not going to play football next year. You have 2 years worth of veterans leaving without them attempting to adequately replace them in any way, shape, or form. You're going to suck next year. But the problem is you're not going to suck enough. Unless Dak's body is totally falling apart, you won't suck enough, because you will have Dak, CeeDee, and Micah. So you won't suck enough. Like, what if the plan is a 2-year tank for Arch Manning? What? I wouldn't put it past him. Problem is you can't be the worst team in football because you have those players who are too good, and you're going to accidentally win 5, and there's going to be teams that win 2 or 3. But I would not put it past them at all to have signed Dak at the last minute in free agency, even if they didn't believe in him, because there's a reason that they do write the really big checks to their guys, because those guys are relevant to their fan base and the reason that the fan base exists, and they can't not be relevant. So you pay Dak what you have to pay him while getting ready to suck on purpose to try and go get your next quarterback, but your fan base stays engaged because the superstars that they love are still here, see the fact that they brought Zeke back despite the fact that they knew that he was so washed that they cut him, and they still owe him money this year from last time. They're manipulative. That's billionaires, y'all. What Jeff spoke about concerning the Eagles is just nonsense. What do you mean? The Eagles are going to pay for that in 2027. Yeah, they will. At some point between 2027 and 2032, the Eagles will eat some big dead money years. But if they're still in a very competitive window, unless it's a guy retiring, they'll push it off again. They'll keep pushing it. Now, when a guy retires or you don't re-sign him, yeah, it'll hurt. And I do think the Eagles have a hurting coming. If the Cowboys signed their franchise quarterback to a 4-year contract extension, if you're not pushing in the next 3 years, what are you doing? I have no idea. Anyway, draft will be fun. We got some picks. I set the 4th rounder on fire again. I think they did that for y'all. I think they did that because it was a trade deadline and people were like, they should be selling. And Jerry was like, yeah, but if we buy, they'll be like, look at them go. Yeah. Correct. Ratio has this nailed. Highs are never high enough. Lows are never low enough. That is the Cowboys. And I'm not a fan of the way that the Eagles are doing it currently, because it will hurt. There will come a time where that hurts. Now, they do have it staggered pretty good, and Howie Roseman and their cap guy are geniuses. So they'll find a way for, if it hurts, it'll be quick. That's what people do. Like the Rams, it hurt 1 year, bounced right back. The Cowboys are claiming it's going to take them 2 years to be able to spend money when they never did what these teams are doing in terms of their aggressiveness with the monies. Does McClay have the safest job in the NFL? Yeah, probably. Yeah. Can I ask a question? If you're in the chat and, like, let's just say, for instance, this person, just for fun, What am I making up? What is rooted in anything false? And I mean, I guess it is a good shtick for some people, like Stephen A. and Skip and them. Like, that's what they do. That's not what I do. I love talking about football. I love studying football. I enjoy the cap. I enjoy the data. I love all of it. I happen to cover a team that other stuff comes into play a lot because they put it into play with the stuff they say. They lie to the fan base repeatedly. And I just want people to understand how the cap works, how team building works, what you are capable or aren't capable of doing. Cowboys don't have to go full Eagles. They don't have to. But don't pretend that you don't have very easy ways to sign Micah Parsons and free agents. You do. They're very easy. It's literally one click away on the internet. It's one click away on the internet. That's weird. I would love to just do football. It'd be great. I would love to. It'd be awesome. What about Abdul Carter? I would love to sit here and talk about Abdul Carter. He's fun. We can't have him, though. We've already won too many games, probably. Abdul Carter's a pass rusher at Penn State that was a linebacker the 2 years before, and he kind of looks like Micah. Not that he's going to be Micah, because Micah's one of one. Nobody has that explosion, but he's kind of a similar vein. He'd be fun. He'd be fun. What if the couple of trolls in here are Jones family members on burner accounts? Y'all ever think about that? Yeah. The Eagles will pay for this later in the decade. Probably. Like, they have very extremely manipulated the salary cap. You don't have to do that. You don't have to do that. For the Cowboys, it's literally restructured Dak and CeeDee. Those things are already built into the contract. Just acknowledge that it's going to happen, and that then you have the money to improve your football team, and we're good here. Saying it's going to be real tight is pretending that Dak and CeeDee's contracts aren't written exactly the way they're written. It's not real tight. It's not. At all. Is he real pass rusher or linebacker hybrid like Micah? He's built the same and he moves the same, but not quite the same, obviously. I'd say there's only one Micah. And he was a linebacker for 2 years at Penn State, but he's actually playing the edge and rushing the passer this year. So his transition already happened. It wouldn't happen as he got to the NFL. When the Jones regime is over, then we will finally start winning. When's that? Steven's next. He got kids. They going to have kids. Charlotte's here. She got kids. They all got kids. Very sad. Because they have to sign Micah, Osa, Lewis, Turpin, and Bland a year later with Tyler Smith going to the 5th. Yeah, you can do all of that and add free agents every single offseason. Lewis, if he comes back, will be a 1-year deal that's cheap. And if you really wanted to, instead of just leaning on the fact that your fan base falls in love with your players, you could also trade your players. You're allowed to. Like, you could trade players to add at different positions, try to make your team better. You can do all sorts of stuff. At the end of the day, how much would we have in cap space after those 2 restructures? I'll tell you. Cowboys currently have $22 million in cap space going into 2025, but that is about the same amount that will be owed on DeMarcus Lawrence, Zach Martin, and Brandon Cooks, who will no longer be here. That's the stuff they're talking about with owing people money. So you can pretty much scratch out their carryover money, and then Dak and CeeDee on their own is just under $60 million for you. And then there's guys you can cut. You can post June 1. There's all sorts of things that you could do. There's other guys you could restructure. If Diggs is going to be around, then you restructure him. Bam. Here's $6 million more to spend. If you want to post June 1, which maybe you can't just because you don't have anybody in mind to replace him, but you could post June 1. Terrence Steele, bam, $14 million to spend. Anybody Anybody else is a post-June 1 guy? Cut post-June 1. Donovan Wilson, $7 million. They got lots of stuff they can do. And that's not even mentioning the other thing that will create cap space for them or can create cap space for them is extending Micah Parsons. They pretend that it's like real tight because what are we going to do then? Extending Micah Parsons would bring his cap number down in the first year, obviously. Not a fan of restructuring Diggs unless he can return to form, right? And I think that's how I wish the salary cap stuff was talked about. Because it was not this offseason, but it was the one before, right? When they restructured Gallup, and I was like, really? He came back off of the ACL and he's not playing well. And like, you might be interested in cutting him if you could. And now you're going to move even more of his money back and you're going to eat that later when you might, like, he ain't going to be here. That's the reckless stuff. And that's why I said that was the Cowboys version of all in. They were restructuring guys that you knew weren't going to be here and you were going to have to pay for that later. And so this is them rebounding from that. But that's like a $9 million thing. Other teams have 40 of it. Anyway, you guys have a great night. Don't let Steven and Jerry lie to you. Don't let them turn you against the players. Don't let them convince you that they can't sign a player or that the salary cap is stopping us. The day that they're actually in a salary cap bind, I'll let you know. And then we'll know what we have to do about it. They're lying to you. And that's not cool.